Arcadian Vanguard presents the Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with WWE Monday Night Raw, live last night on the USA Network from the SAP Center in San Jose, California. The main event of the show saw Gunther retain the Intercontinental title by defeating Tommaso Ciampa by referee's decision as Ciampa passed out while in Gunther's sleeper hold. After the match, all of Imperium began to beat Ciampa down until Ciampa's DIY partner Johnny Gargano made his return to save the day.
Johnny Gargano is here! Gargano with a spear!
Ciampa's been looking for him for months. He's finally found it!
Gargano taking the fight to Imperium. Super kick. DIY. Back tonight on Monday Night Raw. Made it in the middle.
During an in-ring interview with the Judgment Day, Jey Uso interrupted, which led to him being jumped by the group. Uso was saved by Cody Rhodes, with WWE official Adam Pearce declaring Rhodes and Uso will face Finn Balor and Damian Priest for the Undisputed World Tag Team title this Saturday at WWE Fastlane. Also taking place at Fastlane will be Seth Rollins defending the WWE World Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura. During an in-ring promo segment with Rollins on last night's show, Nakamura attacked the champion and once again focused his attack on Rollins' back.
And Nakamura not done yet.
How smart is this from Nakamura?
Spinning first through a steel chair. And a Kinshasa.
Tegan Nox defeated Chelsea Green. Nox was scheduled to face NXT Women's Champion Becky Lynch, but the match was postponed until next week's Raw due to Lynch not being medically cleared to compete. Lynch suffered a severe laceration to her right arm against Tiffany Stratton during their match at last Saturday's No Mercy event. New NXT North American Champion Trick Williams was interviewed backstage. It was announced during the program that he would be defending the title tonight on NXT against former champion Dominic Mysterio. In other results, Bronson Reed squashed Cedric Alexander, Drew McIntyre quickly dispatched of The Miz, Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser defeated Alpha Academy, and Xavier Woods defeated Ivar. After the match, Ivar laid out both Woods and Kofi Kingston. In ratings news, with information provided by WrestleNomics, last Friday's SmackDown drew a total audience of 2.303 million viewers to the Fox network. That's up nearly 3.5% from the previous week, which finished with 2.23 million. This week's rating in the key 18 to 49-year-old demographic was .60, equating to 791,000 viewers. Last Friday's edition of AEW Rampage on TNT tallied 363,000 viewers on average, which was down slightly from the 341,000 that tuned in the week prior. The rating for the key 18 to 49-year-old demographic was .14, equating to 185,000 viewers. AEW's Countdown to Wrestle Dream special, which aired for a half hour following Rampage on TNT, finished with 139,000 viewers and a .05 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, which equaled 60,000 viewers. Turning to Japan, the Stardom injured reserve list grew longer Monday as the company announced Natsupoi would be out of action, quote, for the time being, end quote, due to a cervical hernia, also known as a herniated disc. Natsupoi is being sidelined with the same injury as Utami Hayashishita, who on September 27th was pulled from the final night of the 5-Star Grand Prix tournament. Last Friday, it was announced that Starlight Kid would also be missing time due to an ankle injury. During the first night of the Grand Prix on July 23rd, Saya Kamitani suffered a dislocated elbow during her match with Tam Nakano, and her return date is also undetermined. And we close with some sad news to report. Russ Francis, one of the last American professional football players to be active while achieving success in professional wrestling, as the business of both entities began to change, was killed when his plane crashed in Lake Placid, New York on Sunday afternoon. He was 70 years old. Francis and another man, Richard McSpadden, had experienced an emergency after taking off and were attempting an emergency landing when the single-engine Cessna 177 they were flying crashed short of the runway. McSpadden was the senior vice president of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association Air Safety Institute. Born April 3, 1953 in Seattle, Washington, Francis was the son of promoter Gentleman Ed Francis, who promoted 50th State big-time wrestling in Hawaii between 1961 and 1979, when he retired after selling the promotion to High Chief Peter Maivia. It was on the islands where the 6'6" Francis achieved most of his wrestling fame, holding the NWA Hawaii Tag Team titles for 3 weeks in 1978 with his brother Bill. But Francis also worked regularly on the mainland during the off-season, mostly for Vern Gagne's AWA as well as in the Portland and Vancouver territories. A first-round draft choice of the National Football League's New England Patriots in 1975, Francis spent 13 years as a tight end for both the Patriots and the San Francisco 49ers. A member of the Patriots' All-1970s team, Francis was named to the Pro Bowl 3 times and won a Super Bowl with the 49ers following the 1984 season. During the 1970s, Francis would also be regularly featured on the ABC Wide World of Sports program The Superstars, where athletes from different sports would compete against each other in various challenges. During his playing career, Francis also became a favorite of legendary sportscaster Howard Cosell, who dubbed him All-World. Francis took on a much more active wrestling schedule when he temporarily retired from the Patriots in 1981, but later that year he was lured out of retirement by San Francisco 49ers head coach Bill Walsh in order to become the tight end in Walsh's new offensive system, which later became known as the West Coast Offense. Francis appeared alongside several other active and retired football players in a battle royal at WrestleMania 2 on April 7, 1985, and was one of the last 4 men in the match, eventually being eliminated by the Hart Foundation. He also appeared for the AWA several times in early 1987, with the promotion hoping his football fame could help draw attendance. During the AWA Superclash 2 in San Francisco on May 2, 1987, he teamed with Superfly Jimmy Snuka to defeat 2 masked wrestlers, the Mercenary and the Terrorist. Often described as a Renaissance man for his interests outside of athletics, after retiring from professional football in 1989, Francis would get involved in sports broadcasting, becoming the sports director at KGMB-TV in Honolulu, as well as hosting radio shows in different markets. In 2000, Francis ran for the United States House of Representatives as a Republican candidate in Hawaii, but lost to incumbent Democrat Patsy Mink. An avid flyer, it was earlier this year that Francis had purchased the Lake Placid Airways scenic touring business, which operated out of the Lake Placid Airport. Once again, former pro wrestler and NFL star Russ Francis has passed away at the age of 70. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.